Welcome to the Thumbody Podcast, where we explore the busy intersection of personal branding and entrepreneurship. This is episode number 6. I'm your host, Jimi Gibson, and I'm here to remind you that you are Thumbody special. Yep, by now you should be fully in the know about the Thumbody brand and the backstory. No? Invest another 10 minutes in episode number 1. The full story is there. Grab some popcorn and enjoy. It's a good story. On the Thumbody Show, we're all about spreading the power of one-of-a-kindness. We believe that everyone has unique gifts and talents they can be used to make a positive impact in the world. Why, what a coincidence. That leads us to our topic today. Today we're talking about a crucial aspect of storytelling, customer stories. We'll explore what it means to impact someone else through the product you sell or the service you deliver. We've even got a segment from Kindra Hall herself. Let's get started with the Thumbody Show.
And now, our special segment. It's what you've been waiting for.
A customer story is a narrative that highlights the experience of a customer with your brand. It's really a way to showcase how your product or service has made a difference in someone's life. Customer stories are powerful because they're relatable and authentic. They give a potential customer a glimpse into what it's like to use your product or engage with your service and how that product or service has helped others or helped themselves. So how do you craft a customer story? Kindra Hall introduces a framework that makes it easy to create a compelling customer story. Now, we've been over this probably in the last 5 episodes, but I'll remind you here and then you can catch up with much more detail in the other episodes. The framework consists of 4 elements: identifiable characters, authentic emotion, a moment, and specific details. We'll get into these 4 elements in a few minutes, but first there are 2 rules of crafting a customer story. Kindra Hall's first rule is you must ask. That's right. You just have to ask. This rule emphasizes the importance of actively seeking out customer stories rather than just waiting for them to come to you. As a business or a marketer, it is your responsibility to initiate the conversation and ask your customers about their experiences with your product and service. The second rule is you must ask specifically. This highlights the importance of asking the right questions to get the most meaningful and relevant stories. This means asking questions that encourage customers to provide specific details about their experience, such as what problems they were trying to solve, what they liked or didn't like about the product or service, and how it helped them achieve their goals, or satisfied a need, or help them solve a problem. Asking specific questions can also help you gather stories that are more interesting and authentic. For example, rather than asking a general question like, "How was your experience with our product?" you could ask a more specific question like, "Can you tell me about a time when our product helped you solve a particularly challenging problem?" You may remember in episode 4 on crafting your value story that I warned you that a value or transformation story and the customer story were very similar. The customer story is one of the most difficult stories to put in your toolbox. And just why is that? Well, in a value or transformation story, you're actually creating a story to connect with your ideal prospect. You control the narrative and you decide what to include. A customer story is where you find out if the value you provided or the transformation you promised actually happened. You're also relying on the customer to tell their story in a way that's interesting, emotional, funny, engaging, or possibly all of the above. A customer story really falls flat when they provide something like, "It was great. I highly recommend it." There's really nothing to sink your teeth into. So let's go back and take a look at the 4 elements of a good story. Identifiable characters. Your customer story should feature a person that your audience can relate to. This person should be someone they can imagine themselves being. Obviously, it's probably the customer. And that customer is going to have attributes and traits similar to your ideal prospect. Authentic emotions. Emotions are what makes stories stick. Your customer should highlight the emotion that your customer experienced when your product or service was delivered, or when they used that product. It could be excitement, relief, happiness, or any other emotion that is genuine and relatable. A moment. Your customer story should focus on a specific moment in time when your customer experienced your product or service. This moment should be a turning point for them, where they realize the value of what you offer. And remember, in a previous episode, we talked about the moment taking up about 5 seconds or less in time. Specific details. Finally, your customer story should include specific details that help bring the story to life. This could be the color of a product, the location where it was used, or the time of day. Specific details help paint that vivid picture for your audience.
It's Thumbody Story Time. Business is not boring. Au contraire. Bring your brand to life with storytelling.
Here's an example of a customer story that was written for me. I hired Jimmy on the recommendation of a trusted friend. He knew that I was a very outside-the-box thinker, and he told me that Jimmy would get me and know what I was looking for. I had a few good conversations with him and decided to hire him and help me brand my real estate brokerage firm. The first thing he did was send me a bunch of paperwork to fill out, asking questions about me, my business, my personal life, etc. Yeah, I immediately regretted my decision. I hate paperwork. However, after taking the time to get to know me, he presented me with a great branding book and some fantastic ad options. I wanted edgy and different than anything else out there, and that's what I got. About a year ago, I had Jimmy refresh my campaign with a few new ads and was just as pleased. Since I've been branding myself with Jimmy's assistance, that's been about 7 years, I get constant calls from other brokers around the country asking me about my marketing and if they could copy my idea for their market. Of course, the answer is always a resounding no. My ads are often brought up when I meet new clients as they've seen them in the community for years. They really stand out from all the other canned garbage out there that my competition uses. Hire him, seriously. But when you hire him, don't tell him what you want your campaign to be. Answer the questions he asks, dialogue with him, and just sit back and let him work. He's better than you at this. It's why you hired him. Obviously, this person is quite the personality, and they had some awesome components. So really, that story follows the 4 components that Kindra Hall lays out in Stories That Stick. Identifiable characters, authentic emotion, a moment, and specific details. Let's break it down. Identifiable characters. It was the customer's friend who recommended me. I'm in the story, and of course the customer. So 3 characters, and I often tell you not to take it much past 3 to 4 characters. It's hard for someone to keep up with too many characters in a story. Authentic emotion. So a couple stand out. He was hesitant at first because he really hates paperwork, but then ultimately he was thrilled with the results. A moment. So there was a transition point. After his friend recommended me, he hired me to brand his real estate brokerage. So there's a very short window of time there. Specific details. He talks about branding himself over the last 7 years. He talks about getting constant calls from other brokers around the country, asking about the marketing and if they can copy the ideas in their market. So really, a customer story is essentially a narrative about how your product or service has impacted a real person. It's a way to showcase the value of your brand and what you bring to the table. It can also be a powerful tool for connecting with potential customers. Lots of research on that. In fact, Nielsen conducted a study that 90% of customers are going to trust the recommendation of somebody else other than the brand's actual communication or advertising. Now, why are customer stories so important? Well, for one, they're relatable. When people hear a story about someone else who has had a positive experience with your brand, they're more likely to imagine themselves in that same situation and see the value of what you offer. Additionally, customer stories are authentic. They're not just a bunch of marketing buzzwords or fluffy rabbits. They're real experiences that have actually happened, and that gives them a level of credibility than other forms of marketing that really just can't be matched. So let's review how to get started with crafting your customer stories. It all starts with gathering data, reaching out to your customers, and asking them to share their experiences with you. From there, You can use the framework of identifiable characters, authentic emotion, a moment, and specific details to craft a compelling story that highlights the value of your brand. And that's it. It's really that simple. So go ahead, give it a try, start reaching out to your customers, and start telling their stories. You might just be surprised by the impact it has on your brand. Thanks for tuning in to the Thumbody Show. Until next time, keep telling your stories.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Before you go, here's our rule of thumb from today's episode. Ooh, a thumb tip.
The rule of thumb for today: get started writing your stories. This episode wraps up our series on the power of storytelling for personal branding. We've covered the main topic and why it's important in episode number 2, the founder story in episode number 3, the value or transformation story in episode 4, the purpose story in episode 5, and this episode about customer story, which is episode number 6. Maybe you've listened to the entire series and you've applied the lessons along the way. Maybe you're waiting for permission to get started. Well, I'm giving you permission. I actually contacted Kindra Hall for an interview. She was very appreciative of the series, but she's spending every waking moment on her 3rd book. Can't wait for that. I asked if she could provide a tip to the Thumbody Show listeners. Let's hear the tip in Kindra's own words. By the way, she gave me permission to share this audio segment from her video blog. I'll provide the link in the show notes.
So whenever I do a Q&A at the end of a keynote, one question I often get is, all right, where should I start? Like, what is next? What story should I tell first? How do I start? I understand. Once you realize all the possibilities for storytelling and all the possible stories you could tell, and they start coming rushing back to you, it can be pretty overwhelming. And unfortunately, overwhelm often leads to inaction. So here it is. Here is your starting line. Choose an upcoming specific communication event. Just one. It could be a meeting you have or an important email you need to send. It could be a presentation or a blog or a social media post. It could be an important conversation you need to have with a colleague or someone on your team, whatever it is. I mean, you could take out your calendar if you need to. Whatever it is, look for one upcoming communication event. Think about the point you want to make at that event, what you want the person listening or reading to think, feel, know, or do. And from there, choose a story that serves that goal. That is where you should start. One communication event, find a story that serves it.
Thanks, Kindra. Great tip. Just pick one specific communication event, using the framework of identifiable characters, authentic emotion, a moment, and specific details. It could literally be an email. It could be a presentation that you're about to give. You might want to replay this. Visit Kindra's website. She has lots of great tips. She has a series of videos and blogs that go along with it. Thanks for hanging out with us today on this fun episode. Your customer story is a must for your brand. Thanks for listening to The Thumbody Show.
Ready to become a part of the most exclusive club around? Wow, really? The Thumbody Club is where it's at. As a member, you'll get a membership card. Oh yeah, be a part of the global community of Thumbodies and receive a super secret weekly club newsletter.
Wow!
But that's not all. We've got a bag full of tricks coming throughout the year. Just go to I'mThumbody.com to sign up. And the best part? It's totally free and worth every penny. Don't miss out on this amazing opportunity. Join the Thumbody Club today.